Hello and welcome everybody to Metaverse Live, and here we are in the beautiful Virtuelles Koeln. I'm going to say Virtual Cologne because I can't speak German, so I can't pronounce it, but I'm pretty sure that somebody on the group of gentlefolk on the sofa will be able to. We'll come to that in a minute. So here we are, and it's this background of SL9B going on somewhere else on the grid, and we'll be coming to that today. We'll be talking about wonderful art exhibition and all sorts of new exciting things for Virtuelles Koeln with Annie Milestone. And we're going to be talking about privacy and intrusion and the usual Uncle Tom Cobley and all burrowing into your private life on the net, particularly with the introduction of new checks in the UK. So first of all, I'm going to go to our normal panel. Mal Burns-Reiter. Hello, Mal.
Hello, Duza.
Have you had a good week?
Yeah, it's been a bit busy. Second Life 9th birthday party, which I'm sure we'll be mentioning. The exhibits there and bit of extra filming and stuff. And I fluffed up my wig, and I've got my mouth working, as you requested. But this is really strange. I cannot smell the Virtuelles Koeln yet. Where is it?
Oh, dear. Okay, move swiftly on to Sigmund Leominster, who I suspect is no better at telling jokes. Sicky, how are you?
Well, I'm not going to tell any jokes because you're absolutely right. I'm terrible at them. I'm just fine. Here in the real world, just for those who are really interesting, and sometimes people are. Yesterday, here in northeast Ohio, we had storms that were taking down trees and that were flooding the roads. And then today, the sun's out, it's 90 degrees, and we're all sweating. So we've gone from storms to near desert conditions in 24 hours. So that makes life very interesting.
It sounds a bit like the UK, Siggy. You must be missing home. We've sent it over there just for you.
Oh, that's good. It means I can do more riding on my motorcycle. So that means usually less time in Second Life. But when that happens, I tend to just pop in late at night. So I get in and it's all very quiet and none of the Brits are around. So that's maybe a good thing.
Dear Lord. Well, I mean, whenever you talk about your motorbike, I just imagine. I'm going to refer everybody to what is quite an old film now. I think it was the 70s, I think, and Girl on a Motorcycle. And if anybody wants to know what Sigmund looks like, I think you will find an image of him in that. I'm going to turn very quickly now before Mal starts talking about some Girl on a Motorcycle.
Marianne Faithfull.
And you never let them have a surprise, Mal. And come to Annie Marston, who's our guest for today, and project leader of Virtuelles Koeln. Annie, many welcomes here.
Thank you very much. Hi, hello.
We're being hosted on your lovely, lovely sim today, and it's beautiful and peaceful, and I'm looking at the fountains out of the window, although I'm supposed to be concentrating on my script, I'm quite sure, but anyway. But with no further ado, we are going to start with our subject number one. And of course, we have to talk about Second Life 9th birthday. And we were going to film on the sim actually there, but of course we can't res our fabulous studio. And it was so laggy there because it's the first day. It's the opening day today. Well, yesterday was, but I mean, the first day everybody's had the chance to run around in there. I went down there and it was really quite laggy. You were down there today, Mal, weren't you?
Believe it or not, no, because Linden's were doing a famous reboot exercise. But I was in there most yesterday, and after the opening, it was nicely unlaggy around the build. Not too many avatars are sort of spread out, so we were able to do some quite nice filming. But the opening event really was laggy, and I suspect lag will be the order of the week.
All right, well, I'm going to swap over to Sigmund to talk about SL9B because I know Mal, that you're very involved in it, and we'll be getting to that later on in this discussion. But Sigmund, what do you think about SL9B? We touched on it briefly a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had a chance to think more on it?
I haven't, and I didn't go in yesterday for the opening ceremonies, but I believe good news is that Metaverse TV did cover some of that, so that's always wonderful. And by all accounts, it was laggy because there was a lot of people there. And from what I gather, again, not having been there, there was well over 100 people in attendance, and that there are lots of hundreds of exhibits there for people to see, and things are happening. And considering, as we said, this was the Second Life birthday that Linden didn't organize, I'm just still fascinated to see how this is going to go for the rest of the time here, based on the fact that this is truly a community event. And what I'm really hoping here, that it does turn out to be hopefully one of the best ever. And what that would show is the importance of community. And that is something we talked about last time, that on the one hand, we have the naysayers who are saying that this is Linden Lab abandoning people and not getting into it and ignoring what's going on. But on the other, it is a great opportunity for people to say, well, Second Life is in fact ours and we're going to do it. So again, from what I hear so far, things have been happening. There's lots more to come, and I'm sure Mal will have a lot more information than I have on that sort of stuff. So to me, this year's an experiment, and I'm dying to see what comes out at the end of it.
Well, I'm going to turn to Annie here. Annie, do you normally attend the Second Life birthday?
Yes, sure. I try to go there each year. Last year we had an exhibition there, exhibition booth there from Germany in 3D, where Cologne is involved. But this year we don't have one on our own, but I was there already, and I took a short look there, but also I decided to come back later because then there will be less lag. But I have seen some birthday cakes as houses, and that was very nice. So I'm also very curious what else I will discover there within the next days.
What do you think about the fact that the Linden Labs didn't actually supply any Sims or organize anything, or does it make a huge difference? I mean, really, all they ever do, isn't it, is to supply the Sims and make calls out for volunteers.
Yes, but I think there could also be done a lot more. So if it's less now this year, so I also think it's a bit sad. But anyway, it's great if the community does everything, and if they are really enthusiastic enough to do such a great thing there.
Mal, I'm going to bring you in here, right? And I'm going to ask you what defines community, because Sigmund brought it up and Annie's brought it up and Linden's talk about it and people have gone on about it. What is community? I mean, what leads people to get a group of Sims together? Is it altruistic?
That's a very good question. I think, but by and large, it is. I know that the majority of the Sims were donated by what is a commercial concern. They're an estate company in Second Life, so their logo's everywhere, and presumably they get some advantage out of it. But just looking at the work that people like Honor Macmillan, Sapphire Widderskins, and Crap Mariner have done in the background, this is totally, they're not getting paid. They're working their asses off, if you excuse the expression. They've been phenomenally busy, and it is altruistic. And the official, these big Sims complex, the exhibition area is SL9B Community. That is its name. Community is almost in big letters. And I was interested in what we were saying a minute ago, because I actually think I see more enthusiasm from people and, manic preparations going on in the community this time, because it is a community effort. more so than the sort of the previous ones where Linden have provided sims, and it's been a bit regimented. This has involved a lot more people, an immense lot more people, sort of getting together and organizing it on the old Linden Lab template, but their own way, and with a lot more people involved. And so, the community spirit is there. So, the whole celebration is driven by the spirit of everybody working together. And I don't know you always got that in the Linden version. It tended to be a bit of a showcase. Sure, there are artists there and businesses there and everything else, and it was non-commercial, but it still felt very structured. Whereas this time, although there's a great structure and organization there, you really feel it's inhabited by the people that have actually put it together. So, I really think community has been the advantage here, because it's the community that's rallied around to get something together. And the result is something probably more spectacular than Linden Labs would have generated in their own right. And
I thought it was. I listened to some of. I caught some of Safia's speech, right? The opening speech, and she was talking about. She was leading on to. She said they'd had very little lead time this year, and they decided to do it, and then just got on with it. But that they've got a year to plan the 10th year. What would happen? But I mean, aren't Linden Labs going to say, right, it's our 10th year, we're going to do something? And
do you know, I've been thinking exactly the same thing. I don't have a clue as to what the answer is, but I mean, I'm conscious of the 9, and I'm thinking 1 year time, Second Life is going to be a decade old. And, are they going to just let it pass as they've done this year?
Do you mean a decade or decade?
A slowly decaying decade. I don't know. Very nice one, Loser. It will be 10 years old already. 10. I'll stick to the 10, shall we? It will be entering its teens. I mean, next year should be absolutely great, to reach 10 years of Second Life, assuming it's still here, which I think it will be. It will be very interesting to see how that pans out. I mean, this year's community build, they have actually got a community hub area, and that has been specifically built to include teleports out to the Linden Lab destination guide venues, because Linden Labs, although they're not celebrating it themselves, they have actually they invited people to do their own birthday builds, and those landmarks are, I believe, on the destination guide, so as a separate exercise. And so what the community party has done is they provided a little build within their build, which features TPs outward to other sims that have built their own sort of celebrations. So there's obviously been a willingness of the community celebration to integrate what they could of what Linden Labs are doing. So, it's...
Well, actually, it's not what Linden Labs are doing, is it?
Well,
I mean, Linden Labs did that, but actually the people who've done builds are doing it for SL9B, and at the time that they started planning those builds or did those builds and started putting stuff into the destination guide, they didn't know there was actually going to be a kind of community-based sim donation, did they? Sigmund, what do you think about
that? Like Mal here, I was also curious about this notion of the 10 years, whether that will happen. But if this proves to be successful, and there's no reason to assume it won't be, then I think Linden Lab will be best served by not taking a hold of the 10-year and let the 10-year happen. Because I think what we're seeing here, and I hate to be political about this, but what we're seeing here is the Triumph Capitalism. But that notion whereby instead of letting somebody else do it, which is easy to do, let them handle it. We have, as Mal said, seen the community come together and say, well, okay, we can do this. And I think the success that we see from this will just make it so that next year it could be even better, even bigger. And I think Mal's quite right when he was saying that Safi was saying we have a year to prepare this time, and that makes it all the more exciting and entertaining.
Annie, what do you think? What would you do if it was your 10-year celebration next year?
Well, I think that it's, as I said, it's quite sad that Linden Lab just says maybe, well, there will happen something, the community might do something, but we don't know, and if not, okay, then just don't do a party there. So this is sad, and if it would be mine, the next year's birthday, so I would prepare everything very well. But I don't really expect much from Linden Lab at this point. Well, we hope the best, but really, I don't really expect it.
So there we go, folks. We're going to move on now to an equally cheerful subject, which is, and I'm going to bring Sicky on this, actually, Sig. I'm going to bring you on this, because I know that you kind of have an opinion about it, I suspect. And it's basically about privacy on the net. Mal drew to my attention a few days ago the Habbo Hotel Safety Security. The BBC, yet again, went into...
Channel 4.
Was it? It was the BBC, wasn't it?
No, Channel 4 News. Broke it. They had the main headline feature. Exactly a week ago today.
Right, well, anyway, journalists went into Habbo Hotel in disguise, which is ironic, considering that actually they were looking for people in disguise. But, and of course, found exactly what they were looking for, because they were looking for it, so they found it. Basically, you know, inappropriate chat, inappropriate actions. And basically it felt like to them that Habbo Hotel was not the secure place that it was supposed to be for kids on the net. But I wanted to talk about this today because I wanted to go into the whole privacy issue in general. And Sigmund, I'd like you to start us off on that.
You know, I think one of the things that over maybe the past 10 years more so, I think we've seen in the world of the internet and in virtual worlds is that we're still trying to come to terms with the notion of what's private and what's not, and what's public and what's not. And we've had these discussions, I think, in relation to things like Facebook or any of the social media, whereby there's this strange schizophrenic approach whereby everybody wants to take part in Facebook and be social and share stuff, but then people get upset if they think that people have used information that they've previously shared and said, well, you can't do that, it's private, you know. And I'm very much a person who believes, you know, which part of social media don't you understand? If it's social, then you are putting yourself up for scrutiny, you are abdicating some of your privacy rights. And so the same applies to a certain extent, I think, to virtual worlds. And only, was it now? Maybe it's a couple of years now since we had the merger of the Teen Grid with the adults. You know, we had this big discussion then about, well, how's that going to change things and how inappropriate can things be? But I think the dire prognostications of corrupting children don't appear to have happened, and that people have quite happily settled into the notion of considering what they think is private, what's personal, what they can and cannot talk about. And we do know that there are groups within Second Life whose interests are such that people could well be offended by the practices that they indulge in, but they set themselves up on their own private sins. They lock the doors, basically, and do what they want to do without people. So people are having to come to terms with this notion of taking some responsibility for their own privacy. And where we see clashes, I think, which is, you know, sounds like what's happening here, is where we have different people's notions of what is private and what is public and what you can and cannot say or cannot do. And it's when you have folks going, say, into Second Life looking for, you know, some bondage sex and lo and behold, find it, and then start saying how terrible this is, and then, if they hadn't been looking for it and they weren't trying to find it, they would never have seen it in the first place. And so they start to give people, impose their ideas of what is and isn't permissible, and wrap it up in this notion of privacy and public. So what we're seeing, I think, in general throughout the internet is trying to come to terms with some new concepts behind private and public. And the internet in of itself is not a very, very good thing for privacy. And people just have a hard time understanding that you post something on the internet or you post something in a virtual world, it's very likely somebody somewhere will see it. The only way out of that is not to take part.
What do you think, Annie, about this? Because if we don't take part, are we excluding ourselves from everything? Are we excluding ourselves from friendship, from relationships? Do we become a social pariah?
In my life, social life is still a lot in real life, but I don't wonder so much about the social life in the web, more about information. I think really that you exclude yourself if you don't take part in the internet, but more you exclude yourself from information and also some contacts, sure. I think that in some way Sicky is right that he says if you post something on the internet, you must know that it's public, I think this only counts for adults and people who can already carefully think about that. But if you are speaking about children, this doesn't count. So this is a special case then. And then I think the privacy, publicity question is not the real question in this case.
Now.
Well, this is a minefield, I knew we were going to be talking about Habbo Hotel, so I had some thoughts in mind. But I know that like Sir Tim Berners-Lee and other founders of, the World Wide Web, as opposed to the original Internet, have always said, quite frankly, that the web was never built for people. It was built for the delivery of information. And we've developed all these technologies that work on top of it, where we now think of it as, a communication tool, other than just accessing information. So we use our Facebooks and our Twitters and things like that. When I look at something like Facebook, it is so endemic now, ubiquitous for people to use, that I think a lot of people use it because we live in an online society and they see it as a communication tool, but they are new enough to the internet that they don't understand that they're using a medium that was originally just built for information, and that just because Facebook's there, like the telephone is there, doesn't mean that it's as confidential. And I think they forget this. And back to Habbo Hotel specifically. Habbo Hotel in a way is like Second Life because it has been around a while and it is a standalone world, if you can call it that operates on the internet. It bypasses the web, unlike, say, Facebook Farmvilles and stuff, which look pretty much the same, but are really kind of connected to your whole friends list of Facebook and whatever, where information is all over the place, to be honest. I just thought that was more of a threat. What happened with Habbo Hotel, though, I think is a big wake-up call, and probably a good one. They, to a certain extent, they got it wrong. The reporter who went in sort of 50 times and was approached, by what she reckons was paedophile 50 times. And, but she went in, quite casually to the same landing spot, I guess it would be. And even if you look at Second Life here and you go to wherever the newbies land, there are always a few predators hanging around trying to pick up women or worse. as they come in as newbies. Now, obviously, a lot of the adult stuff in Second Life, which is an adult grid, is now on the Zindra continent. So that it's very hard for a newbie to get into any hard stuff, shall we say. In Habbo, I was reading the threads following the exposure, and a lot of Habbo users were up in arms. They were trying to boycott Channel 4 News and everything else, but they were pointing out that, oh, well, we just don't hang out in those newbie places, those silly places. We've got our own private rooms. We've got our own places to go. We don't have anything to do with that. And I can suddenly imagine Second Life users saying exactly the same thing if there was a big fuss about Second Life, you know. Well, we don't hang out at the newbie places. We've got our own communities, back to communities. We've got our own spaces where we, you know, find our own little tribes. But Channel 4 did have a point in and that is that they were describing the experience by way of their reporter as what a new person logging in finds. Mm-hmm. And it is very true that she was accosted constantly at the one location or the locations where she actually arrived as a new user. And Habbo, of course, have been badly affected. Many of their investors have withdrawn. They've lost millions of pounds. They had to mute chat for a long while. It's back on air. And of course, they used to have a good reputation for chat moderation, which is all text chat, I hasten to add. Whereas nowadays they've outsourced it to a separate company, and apparently it looks like the separate company is, you know, not doing the moderation it's meant to be doing. They're all coming up with excuses, of course, but I mean, Habbo has really suffered, and I think in the background it must be a wake-up call to people like Linden Labs, Blue Mars, and any other social virtual world there is.
Well, there used to be mentors at the newbie places in Second Life, and then the mentor scheme went the way of other things, and so there aren't the mentors sort of not policing the place, but they're not there to help. I used to find it quite useful. I could not stand still in a field for more than 3 seconds before being approached, but it wasn't necessarily by people that I would recognize as paedophiles. It was generally guys, you know, talking and wanted to help me build and all that kind of thing. There was the odd occasion when, you know, you were kind of stunned by what might have happened. But there would be a mentor to go and tell, please, Mum, you know,
yeah.
That man came up and talked to me funny. You know, there would be somebody there, but I mean, I came in before the teens came in, but, I think if you're new to a social network, to a virtual world, that actually you could be very, very shocked by it, actually, in some ways, if you are new to it. And let's face it, we've got people of all kinds of age and web experience coming into virtual worlds. And as they open out more, there are more and more people without that previous experience going to come in. That's going to be the first thing they hear. But how can you legislate for that? Annie, you're running this place. How do you legislate for that?
Well, but I think everyone is new at one point. Mm-hmm. So nobody gets older user if he hasn't been a newbie before. And so that means if this reporter, if this journalist had this experience in a 100% of his trials, then we must always think that everybody who gets into Habbo will make this experience too. And so this is very dangerous, because then you can also count how many % of the people there in the world are maybe not that strong that they can resist those attacks. And so then you can easily calculate how many people really get deeper into these things, and how many childs then, for sure.
Sigmund, what do you do to protect children?
What would I do to protect my own kids in real life? I think part of the answer is in relation to education. Educating your kids and preparing them for a world in which things can happen which are bad, things that are not quite right. Like you said there, somebody talked to me funny. Again, I didn't see the report, so the other thing is that I'm not sure what we're talking about here when we talk about kids. How old will we talking about
This is
kids?
a teen site,
Okay.
13 and over.
13 and over. Then, but the other thing we need to be aware of, and this is just a general thing, so I'm not talking specifically, is that it's one of the dangers that we allow ourselves in the area of freedom of thought and freedom of speech, is that it's very easy to use, but it's for the safety of the kids as an excuse to stop things happening. And it's very hard to argue against that, because if somebody says, like you're saying here, Sicky, are you saying that people should be allowed to accost kids on the internet and try and spirit them away and kidnap them? And I'm going to say, well, no. And then the next one is, so you think we should ban people, or we should ban certain speech, or we should police things, or we should make things illegal? I'm going to say, well, no, neither. It's one of those things where we instinctively think that because we hear a story or a story occurs that appears to have some problems and it affects the kids, it affects our children, that something morally is, has to be addressed. And the danger is that can be taken far to extremes. Let me give you another example, which is a report came out only last week that suggested that something like 30 to 40% of teens, and we're talking 13 to 18, have seen text messages with pictures attached of a sexual nature. Mm. Now, I don't know how corrupting that is with teens. I don't get the impression that all our teens are now psychologically maladjusted as a result of that. But I also remember that when I was 13, that although I didn't have access to the internet to learn about things, I learned about things. And the internet is just another way of that happening. But let me go back very specifically to this notion of, the Habbo Hotel example, maybe that, number one, if I knew my kids were going to be drifting into to worlds, virtual worlds, I would tell them openly, to beware of, not to interact with people. And if somebody interacts with you inappropriately, then they should feel free to either eject them, mute them, or do whatever you need to do. So I give them that information about what to do. Because, again, I don't know whether you could police it. That's got to be very, very hard. And the second is to always bear in mind that not to overestimate risk. What risks really occur while you're in a virtual environment, considering that at the end of the day, you're going to hit Control Q and quit the program? Mm. I mean, that's a different type of risk than saying, sending your child to the Michael Jackson summer camp or something, where you put them into a physical harm or physical danger in a real environment, as opposed to this artificial environment where you have the choice to turn off. I've spoken enough, but I think it's just worth bearing in mind that sometimes we overemphasize the danger to the kids when maybe there's not as much danger. And what we don't want to do is use that as a blanket excuse for draconian measures to ban this, ban that, ban the other, and have virtual policemen stopping in every corner, tracking your speech.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well,
sorry, I was going to move on, actually, Mal.
What?
I was going to move on to the very cheerful Virtual Cologne.
Still can't smell it.
And I'm going to bring in Annie Milestone. Now, Annie, we met when Metaverse Television live streamed your real life, your Second Life mirroring of what was happening in real life, right? Mm-hmm. with the festival and the parade for Rose Day. Have I got the Rose Day right? Right. And so that's when we met. And so I'd like to know really what's happening now, because that was a huge parade full of floats, beautiful floats. That was a massive community event, wasn't it?
Yes. Many people were there, and I think in the German part of Second Life, it was maybe the biggest event which has happened so far. I'm not sure, but I think so, because it's not only in Cologne, it's also in other parts of Germany in 3D. But since then, a lot of things happened here. That's true. If you consider that the Rose Monday Parade, this is a one-day event, and we had 7 weeks or so to prepare it in advance. But this is not for sure in the usual day life here in Cologne. It's not possible to make such big events each day, and then you must then also turn into the usual way of preparing events, and we had a quite small team which was preparing events daily or weekly or whatever in a regular term. But now at this point, I'd say like within the last half year, our team has at least doubled, or maybe I think furthermore it's 3 times that many people now here in the Cologne organization team of the events, and they are all community based, so they come from the community, and they are very, very enthusiastic and very nice people, so we have no drama in our team. So I wonder why, because in Second Life drama is not unusual, and but such a harmonic team, you can say, really brings out a lot of efforts, a lot of things, a lot of success. And so we have many things which are going on here. So, for example, arts is a big topic this year in Cologne, and also we have a new club here. And this is the club is just at the start.
So you say you've got a new concept for the club. Tell us what the concept is.
Well, I'd say it's not completely new, because also other clubs do something like this from time to time. But the concept of this club is to change sceneries each day. So what other clubs maybe do for special events in their clubs is something which should turn in this club as a usual thing. So we are having there a scenery. The club is called Supersonic Dance Club, by the way. And there is a usual standard scenery, which is a bit lounge-like. And this you can see there over the day, and also it is used in parties if there is no special scenery yet, because for sure we cannot build 30 special sceneries at one point. So there is a standard scenery that one has opened in the late April, and now on next Friday, by the way, upcoming Friday, 27th, at noon SL time, so if people are interested, that will be great. There is our first special scenery, which will be rest then. So everything which you would see now there will be de-rest then, and the special scenery will be rest then instead, and that will be a funk scene, and that really will be very, very funky, and this will show what the concept will go into. Because it's the first scenery which is for a special theme, but more sceneries like these are coming up over the time, and in the final stage, so to say, there will be a plan, a slot plan which party will happen, and then everything will be rest, which is really fitting into the theme.
So tell me, did you say it's opening this coming Friday?
Yes.
Oh, right. So it's the 22nd.
Noon SL time.
Right. Okay. So, guys, are you going to come and funk? I've got a very funky DJ here.
Yes, that's true. Werner Siegel, by the way, he's really great.
So tell us about you've got a very special art show on here, haven't you, at the moment?
Well, we have also not very old so far. It's about, I think, 9 months old, our art gallery called Kunsthalle Wallraffplatz. So Kunsthalle is like art hall. And this exists for about, I think, 9 months or so. And we had 4 exhibitions there so far. The 4th one is happening there now. Great artists so far. For example, Chapter Kronfeld. I think he's also very well known internationally in Second Life, also real life known. And right at the moment, we are having Patrick Moya. This is his real name, and Moya Janus is his SR name. As exhibition here, and Patrick is a real great guy. I mean, not only as artist but also as person. And his themes in arts, in his younger arts, are exactly the combination the combination of real and virtual. And so you can also see that in his pictures. And Patrick is also very well known internationally in real life, and which we really find great is that he's also doing a real life exhibition here at the art fair in Cologne Real Life. So I think many people here will also visit him then in real life.
That's fantastic. Sigmund, you were going to ask something.
Yes, I've actually visited the real city of Cologne, but never the virtual one. But I was curious as to what you could tell me about the virtual version of the Cologne Cathedral, because I remember seeing that as a kid many, many years ago. And this would be a wonderful opportunity for me to go visit again, albeit virtual. But what can you tell me about that as a building and a piece of Second Life architecture?
Well, we have opened the virtual cathedral in almost 5 years ago. The project here will turn 5 this year, long time now. And this was the first thing which was here in Cologne, because as a Cologne person, the first thing you want to see then is the cathedral, and also as international visitor, this is something which is known worldwide for sure. So this one is already quite old, also in Second Life already. It's the second version which we have here now. So has come up a second version in 2008, and it's built out of 11,500 prims. So this one takes almost the whole sim.
That's amazing.
Yes, and took a long time to build it up for sure. It is quite detailed, not to say very, very detailed. We have had the real life building administration involved, who consulted us about what we really have to also show in Second Life, and maybe what is not so important if we have to consider the prim budget, which we do. And so we really took a lot of time in doing a quite exact replica of the building, and it's the heart of Cologne for sure. So go and visit there. I think it's really interesting.
So how does that work with real life Cologne then? So you're interacting with them all the time, are you?
All the time. When we started the project, we contacted at first the building administration of the Cologne Cathedral, because we thought that we should involve them and we shouldn't go on without them and without having their okay. And but finally we received much more. We also received pictures from them and consultancy and so on. That was really great. But after the cathedral has been finished here, I mean, it is not finished, because it will never be finished, as long as you don't have more prim budget. So we just needed to stop going on there. But if maybe estimate in about 20 years, maybe we get 5,000 more prims for each sim.
You never know.
So you never know. But anyway, so if we would have other opportunities, so mesh for sure is an opportunity to reduce prims and get more details in there again. Then we will go on also detailing it more inside. But this is what we did with the cathedral administration. At this stage, after we had finished the most or the biggest part of the Cologne as we could do now, we didn't do much thing anymore because it's quite finished now at this time. So topic was mostly the building itself, and the architecture is on the sim now. And the rest of the Cologne City, we have contact from time to time. We are more or less reporting what is happening here to let them know, because at the beginning there was a very lot of enthusiasm also from the city. They contacted us in not a different way to do something together.
That's fantastic.
Yes, we had a big press wave here in Cologne because of the cathedral. After, as we were talking about pedophile and so on, that was really a big topic in the German press here in 2008 also. And then also companies moved out of Second Life, as we all remember. And at that point, the interest of many real-life institutions just went away, or just went a lot less than it was before. So now at this point, we are more or less reporting from time to time what is happening to those institutions which we think should know about the further steps which we are doing, or the newest things which are happening here. Also, that art exhibition, that was something which was very interesting for the real life institutions. Or maybe to name a second one, I think many people know Christopher Ray in Second Life. He's I think from London, not sure, but from Great Britain anyway. A very great electro musician, also known real life, Christopher Warmer in real life, and he has done a big concert here, with a great light show around the cathedral. Also can be seen on YouTube also. Really great, and this was also very artistic, and included the cathedral, to come back to the point which Sicky asked.
Okay, so Mal, are you going to come along to Funk Friday?
It might depend on the birthday bill, but I think we'll try. I've been having a look around this wonderful scene outside the window here, and it's a lovely build. I did actually have a couple of questions. Patrick Moyer, of course, has a live stream channel where he does a lot of stuff. But we mentioned in the run-up to the show that one of the big wow factors I've come across is the festival in Nice in France, where again they have this huge carnival quite early in the year, where the Second Life is on huge screens whilst the real life public are sort of having their carnival. And Annie was saying earlier, she hasn't mentioned it yet here now, that there's going to be a kind of swap plan for that, where Cologne will have a float in Nice and vice versa. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yes, this came over the contact to Patrick Moyer, the artist which is doing the exhibition here at the moment. For sure, I've also visited his sims, and he is involved in the Nice Carnival pretty much. And then I said, well, we have to do something together next Carnival. So I think maybe it will turn out that Nice will do a float in the Cologne Carnival, and also vice versa, but maybe also more. So we have just thought a bit about it, but I'm sure that we will do something together, and that will be interesting for sure.
We also, it's funny you mentioned Chris Walmer earlier, actually, because he's a regular on a Sunday show I do, and he actually, I believe he told us on Sunday, a couple of days back, that he's coming to do a live performance in Cologne.
Oh, in real life, you mean?
Yeah, I believe so. He's also going to somewhere in the American Northwest. I think they're all real life. They're real life gigs that sort of tie in with some of his virtual performances. So he's doing a world tour. Very good. I did have one final question, actually, which we haven't discussed at all, actually. But with your heavy involvement with the real city and your virtual city and everything, have you actually developed anything using Open Simulator? Do you keep backups of the builds and recreate them on Open Sims where you have more prims or anything like that?
Yes, we have a building plot, so to say, as OpenSim. So we are doing their we are doing their things before uploading them here from time to time. Also, we have recreated the most part of the Cologne Cathedral just as backup there, for example. And but this is also only closed. So it's our private backup system or building spot, but we are not connected to a open grid.
The hypergrid, so I can't TP in.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, well, I just could talk about this forever, actually. It's really brilliant listening to Annie. Yeah, and I think we've had a very interesting panel today. It's coming up towards the end of our program. So really, I'm just going to come to our panel members to sort of sum up where they are at the moment, what's happening to them, what their goals are for the next few weeks until our next program, really. So just to lead off, Annie, as an example of what you may or may not want to talk about, I'm going to go to Mal first and then to Sigmund and then come to you. Okay, Mal.
Wait, what's new? What's happening? It's going to be the birthday thing, and until the weekend, it's pretty much taking over. I am hosting a panel at the birthday build tomorrow at 6 p.m. Second Life time, looking at the future of media in Second Life, and I think that's going to be broadcast on the same channel here we're on now. Over and beyond that, I think it's going to take me most of the week to run around exploring, the builds that are now open. A lot came online at in the last few days, but I'll think about anything else after the birthday's over, I think. So happy birthday, Second Life is all I can say.
Okay, Sigmund.
I'm with Mal on the notion of trying to visit some of the Second Life birthday events that are going on. So hopefully later this week I'll get in world to do that. But I do now want to go and see the virtual Cologne Cathedral. It's now on my list of things to do. So that'll be the weekend, I think, before I get to do that. And that's what I'm planning to do. And I think in real life, before we actually come back again in a few more weeks, I'm going to be making the most, I think, of the outdoors. So it's, I'll be out doing a lot of riding, I think.
All right. And now to Annie.
Yes, for sure. I will also go to the Second Life birthday again and watch that very carefully, because I think if you consider that this is community driven that much, then I think the community has earned that everybody goes there and watch it maybe more carefully than in other times before. And well, for the Cologne project, there's also a lot of things to do and happening here, as I have told. So what I wonder about this is that here in Cologne at the moment we have a kind of a boost, big growth of team and so on, and I think this is really the opposite of what Second Life in general has at the moment. At least I don't see a big community growth. So I wonder how this happens here, but I cannot explain. I just can say it's like this. I don't know why, but I'm really happy about that.
Thank you, Annie, and that's a very positive thought. And as for me, I'll be thinking about Sigmund Nearminster in his leathers, and I'll be popping over to see if I've got any future at the end of Mal Burns' panel on the future of virtual media, and then I get to take a day off and come and see some art and some funk with Annie and Werner. So thank you very much for watching us this evening, the ladies and gentlemen in the studio here with us, high above Virtual Cologne, and for all of you out on the net. And it really is worth a visit. Really is. You need to come. I've seen some of the scene changes they're doing for that club, and I have seen the art gallery, and I have to say you have to come, and you have to come and sit by these beautiful fountains. So, on behalf of us all here.
Can I interrupt a second?
Well, I wasn't going to let you.
Well, I just think we should remind our viewers that over on Metaverse Island, Metaverse Satellite is opened, and we're really keen to get lots of people to come there and see it. It's a magnificent build, which we covered a few weeks ago.
Thank you, Mel. Far be it from us to plug ourselves.
As we just did.
We just did.
Yeah.
So, say good night, everybody.
Good night, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks' time.
Bye-bye.
And good night, everybody.
Take it away, Robustus Hats.